Inside the Sciences. This is actually our second episode, and I am your host, Ishina Berhal. And in this episode, we are going to talk about laminar flow cabinets. If you've been into a laboratory, you've worked in a laboratory for a long time now, or probably you're new to a laboratory, you understand the stress that, you have to endure to keep your samples free from contamination because sometimes you have sterilized or you've double checked everything, but still there's a contamination that could leak, and sometimes the culprit is the air around you. That is why laminar flow cabinets are quite important in any laboratory. But sometimes people have this misconception of what laminar flows or what laminar flow cabinets actually do. So in today's episode, we are going to clarify things about laminar flow cabinets. We are joined today by Kamala Zaptia Zona, a product management executive here at Esco, to talk to us everything about laminar flow cabinets. So, hello, Kamala. Welcome to Inside the Sciences. Thank you for being with us in this episode.
Hello, Sina. Thank you for having me.
Right. Okay. So, I think we can touch the basics first. Let's talk about what laminar flow cabinets are about. I've mentioned to you earlier about um, people having a misconception of what laminar flow cabinets are. So can you tell us some of these common misconceptions that people have about what laminar flow cabinets actually do?
Okay, so the biggest misconception about laminar flow cabinet is the protection that offered by this equipment. So many people think that they are safely using laminar flow cabinet. It's actually true as long as the sample or the product inside the cabinet is non-hazardous product,
Mm-hmm.
non-hazardous sample. So basically, the laminar flow cabinet has made to protect the sample or the product inside the cabinet, only the product, not the people or the operator
Yeah.
of using the product. So yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
the simple point. And laminar flow cabinet will provide filtered air by using HEPA or ULPA filter, and the this equipment will blows in the filtered air to the product, so the product will be safe from the particulate or microorganism around the environment, I mean around this laboratory area. So the
Mm-hmm.
simple misconception or the biggest misconception about laminar flow cabinet is about the protection and also the airflow. The protection
All right.
should be clear before we are using laminar flow cabinet. So we always ask our customer about what is the sample are you using. And the second misconception is about the airflow. The airflow
Mm-hmm.
in laminar flow cabinet not strictly laminar. So many things can introduce the turbulence inside the cabinet. Yeah, that's it.
All right. So with all these misconceptions that you have mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
can you tell us what do laminar flow cabinets actually do? Where do we use them, and why is there a need to actually use them?
Okay, I will answer the why first. Why we require this laminar flow cabinet? Because we need to protect our sample, right? Then the sample requires
Yeah.
a specific condition, such as the free contaminants. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why we are use this laminar flow cabinet. And where laminar flow cabinet is everywhere, we can find it in biotechnology research laboratory, university laboratory, food and beverage laboratory, and also electronic industry. Imagine that when the people assembly this the tiny part of the electronics, that should be zero contaminant. Yeah, if
Yeah.
something's stuck inside the tiny part of the electronic equipment, that will be make a new problem to the biggest problem ahead.
All right. I actually agree with you. You
Mm,
you mentioned earlier about um laminar flow cabinets being in different laboratories from different industries, and that is actually true. The laboratories, as I mentioned earlier, are they really need laminar flow cabinets. So moving forward, let's talk about airflow because you mentioned something about airflow. So when we have what we call the unidirectional airflow. So why is it a big deal? Particularly, it's a big deal for keeping your samples safe. Why is it that the case?
So the unidirectional airflow is means that the air movement is controlled in a single way, in a single
Mm-hmm.
direction at the uniform velocity. That's the unidirectional airflow. This is crucial because in the laboratory to minimize the turbulence and prevent the contamination to our sample or product inside the cabinet. Air is pulled down. Cleaned by the ULPA or UHEPA filtered and blows in one straight direction to keep the area sterile. Only filtered air enters the work area to ensure that the sample is safely protected. So it's really a big deal when we are working with sensitive samples.
Okay, so this unidirectional airflow is really something that's really a big deal to, keeping the sample safe. Now, moving forward, what if you say you have a small hand movement inside the laminar flow cabinet? Can it disrupt can this simple movement, like small hand movement inside the laminar flow cabinet, disrupt the airflow?
Yeah, actually, every movement can disrupt or can introduce turbulence inside the cabinet. That's why when
Mm-hmm.
working with this laminar flow cabinet, we need to move slowly. Um,
Mm-hmm.
not do rapid movement because it can cause turbulence, which disrupt the airflow and potentially cause cross contamination. So, the proper technique and minimal movement are essential when we are working with this laminar flow cabinet.
All right. Okay. So you guys have to remember that. And my next question to you is about, I've mentioned to you earlier, before we start with the podcast that actually there's this misconception about the honor flow cabinets, and maybe not just misconception because a lot of people they think that there are other equipment in the laboratory. Say, for example, biosafety cabinets, laminar fume hoods, and then you have the laminar airflow or laminar flow cabinets, right? So they would think that a biosafety cabinet is a laminar flow cabinet and a fume hood is a laminar flow cabinet. So can you tell us the difference? How do you differentiate, or what's the differences among these three laboratory equipment, laminar flow cabinets, biosafety cabinets, and then we have the fume hood?
Yeah, when we are viewing this unit laminar flow cabinet, fume hood, and biosafety cabinet, it looks similar, just like a containment, which have airflow containment, but airflow, unidirectional airflow, but it's totally different.
Mm-hmm.
Choosing the right cabinet is essential for every activity in the laboratory. This is crucial to identify and select the appropriate cabinet for your specific application. The main difference between them is the protection. Laminar flow cabinet
Mm-hmm.
only protect the sample, meanwhile biosafety cabinet can protect the operator and also the product inside the cabinet and even the environment. And fume hoods can give protection to the environment and also the environment and also the product inside the cabinet. And um, laminar flow cabinet doesn't have negative pressure that will exhaust that will they don't have negative pressure and exhaust filter. So for simply handling the sensitive samples, the non-hazardous samples, the option is only laminar flow cabinet.
All
If
right.
we want to talk about biosafety cabinet, maybe we need another one episode about it to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Speaking about that, we actually had the very first episode is about biosafety cabinets. All right. So thank you for again pointing out the differences between these three laboratory equipment because these are the commonly, they are very similar to each other. So when someone is in the laboratory and you'd ask them to point where is the laminar flow cabinet, they would point to a biosafety or a fumoid, but they're quite different as you have explained. All right, so now let's go to best practices, Kamala. You know what? Let's talk about the
Mhm.
best practices when it comes to using the laminar flow cabinets. So I think the very first thing that we have to do to ask here is that, in if somebody is working in a laboratory on an everyday basis, what are those habits that uh, maybe a particular laboratory staff they do? What are these habits that they do that could compromise the sterility of the samples?
Mm-hmm. One of them, we already talked about the rapid movement. Rapid movement can introduce the turbulence that might introduce the contaminant inside to the sample. And
Mm-hmm.
common habits that silently compromise sterility are overcrowding in the work area, blocking the airflow path. Blocking the airflow path. Laminar flow
Mm-hmm.
cabinet has two types, which are horizontal one and vertical one. It's essential to choose the right cabinet to the due to the products. If we are
Mm-hmm.
working with the big product with the big sample, we recommend to use vertical one. But it's
Mm-hmm.
like pouring agar, we can use the horizontal one. And if we
Mm-hmm.
choose the wrong equipment, that will be block the airflow path. And again, all about the airflow. Then
Yeah.
wearing improper PPE, using sterilized model, uh, using improper PPE, also pressing hands or material above the critical samples will also compromise the sterility inside the cabinet.
Yeah, all right. So,
Mm.
emphasis on the airflow. Airflow is quite
Yeah.
important. Yeah, all right. So, my next question to you is that let's talk about, because you mentioned earlier about being laboratories being crowded, especially really, I've been to laboratories that are really crowded because of this limited space that they have. So in this case and other cases of laboratories, where should they place or they put the laminar flow cabinets?
Laminar flow cabinet should be placed on the clean area of laboratory, and avoid to put the equipment near to the door, windows,
Mm-hmm.
exhaust fan, or etc. that will be introduced the air turbulence inside the cabinet. So simply put it
Mm.
far away from the door, or the source of the air turbulence.
All right. So how about low noise and low vibration? How does it actually help the users?
Oh, okay. It's really interesting because the low noise will reduce user fatigue and improve concentration uh in when we are working in the laboratory, right? Critical
Mm-hmm.
in tasks
Yeah.
requiring the fine motor skills like cell culturing. Also vibration. Vibration can disrupt delicate procedure or instrument like balance or microscope. So I can say that this equipment, laminar flow cabinet, especially from Esco, is the most quiet equipment
Mm.
compared to another brand in the market.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's quite helpful because based on experience, I could tell you that a low noise, and when you enter laboratories, they're usually very quiet because it
Mm-mm.
helps the laboratory staff or the researchers to actually focus on the experiment that they're doing. So yeah, so it's a good thing that ESCO has this kind of feature. All right. So another question about best practices is that what should people remember? Can you give us
Mm-hmm.
the important points that people should remember when they're working under the laminar flow cabinet?
Okay, we group it into 3 points that should we remember when we are working with this laminar flow cabinet. First thing first, avoid the blocking airflow path. Second one, use
Mm-hmm.
proper aseptic techniques. And the third one, minimize the movements. These 3 steps is I can say complete to working with this laminar flow cabinet.
Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
those are the things, guys, that you have to remember if you're working in a laminar flow cabin, especially if you're new to the equipment. All right. Okay. So Kamala, let's talk about maintenance. So how can you tell how often does a user need to check or to check the filters or to change the
Mm-hmm.
filters of their cabinets? How can they
Okay.
tell that, oh, it's time to change the filter now? How do they know?
Okay. Yeah, filter is the main part of laminar flow cabinet. The factory we recommend to check the filter annually, and after
Mm,
replacing the filter, we recommend to recalibrate the equipment, recalibrate the airflow, check the airflow and all about the equipment. And then how do we know that the filter should be replaced or something? These equipment are smart. I can say smart because all information will be appear in one screen. So if
mm,
something happens like airflow drops, that is the sign that you need to change or replace the filter. And uh, there are filter drops that will be alarm the operator as a sign to replace the filter.
wow. It's actually quite practical for laboratory
Mm-hmm.
users so that they would know because they need to always, be informed or always check their filters because as we have been talking about, airflow is quite important when it comes to, when we're talking about laminar flow cabinets. All right, so let's talk about the designs, Kamala. So if we're gonna work with a laminar flow cabinet for a long time, what are the designs? What makes a laminar flow like stand the test of time, like work for a long time? Especially when we're talking about comfort,
Mm-hmm.
what features does or do um make the laminar flow cabinets actually be comfortable over a long period of usage?
Okay, so if we talk about the comfortable, that means we talk about the humans, the user of the product, of the equipment. I mean,
Mm,
we feel more comfortable when we are working with the perfect equipment for our needs, is it right? And of course, we need to ensure that every part of the equipment receive a routine maintenance. Comfort also supported by ergonomic design, such as in our laminar flow cabinet, the design is very comfortable to the user,
mhm,
such as the sentinel gold that put on the center of our head, and it's adding angle down, so it's easy
mhm.
to observe what happens in the cabinet, the airflow and etc. It will be appear in that one screen. And then
Hmm.
a spill retaining worktop. It's also essential to make it easy to clean. And then quiet operation. Also, the most important thing is energy efficient.
Wow. All right. And all that in our,
Mm-hmm.
Esco products. All right. So you mentioned about ergonomic design. So can you talk to us how ergonomic features can actually reduce mistakes when working with, laminar flow cabinets?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, poor ergonomic design can lead the user to distraction, right? Ergonomic design improve focus and precision when we are working in the laboratory. So there will be minimal mistaken. If something is not fit with us, with not fit with not really fit with you, maybe you need some self adjustment that also consume
Mhm.
your focus in the laboratory. But no
Yeah.
worries, ESCO has a wide range of customization options to ensure that the product is for you and uh, even exceed your expectation.
Yeah, right. And
Mm-hmm.
we're still talking about, the designs, but particularly the design of the laminar flow cabinets here in ESCO. And we mentioned about earlier the low noise and the low vibration. So how does this, can you reiterate how a quiet operation could actually, translate to better results? How does it help the researchers or the laboratory staff?
Okay, yeah. So if you visit any lab, you will notice that it's typically quiet, like we're discussing before, right? Researchers work in silence and focusing on their experiments. And I experienced this myself when doing research at university. Any noise can distract my concentration. Maybe also you also experience on it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's why this quiet operation is essential to every lab. I can confidentially,
Mhm.
yeah, that's it.
Yeah, yeah. I've been, I've been to a lot of laboratories, and they're really, one thing I could tell you is that it's really quiet, especially when, the researchers are working on their experiments, because they really need to focus. All right. So for my last question to you, let's talk about check and, compliance. So how does, what are the tools and designs that makes it easier, for to achieve certain compliance?
For routine check and to make the lab work easier, the display
Mhm.
and controller are the keys. Esco is equipped with a Sentinel Gold microprocessor control that display all safety information in one screen. It shows the airflow readings and the alarm is triggered automatically if failure is detected. So uh, it will improve our works and make our comfortable to work with this lateral flow cabinet.
All right, so it seems like the ESCO designer, the designs here in ESCO, laminar flow cabins are really quite, I think user friendly, and they're also, practical, because they would, like earlier you mentioned about the information that you can get, for example, filter checks. They would inform you what's the status of your filter. So I think they're very, very practical, right? All right. So thank you very much, Kamala, for sharing your knowledge and expertise when it comes to laminar flow cabinets, particularly our laminar flow cabinets here in ESCO. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you, Kamala. All right. Okay. So, you guys, if you want to know more about the laminar flow cabinets here that we have in ESCO, do not forget to check out all the specifications and all the features that we offer for laminar flow cabinets. Visit www.escolifesciences.com, and also do not forget to subscribe to this podcast to know about the latest innovations in science. And once again, this is Sheena Verhal, and this has been Inside the Sciences. See you next time. Bye.